Hi, I'm John DeDakis. I'm a novelist, a writing coach, a manuscript editor, and a former editor on CNN's The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer. You're one-to-one with me, and I'm one-to-one with Cynthia Farahat. Cynthia is, well, she's going to be a fun person to talk to and challenging. Cynthia is an Egyptian-American author, columnist, terrorism expert, and fellow at the Middle East Forum. She co-founded the Liberal Egyptian Party in Egypt, which advocated for peace with Israel, capitalism, and the separation of mosque and state. Farahat landed on an Al-Qaeda affiliated group's hit list and was officially banned from entering Lebanon for her work fostering regional peace. She studied Islamic jurisprudence and history for more than 20 years and co-authored the Arabic book Desecration of a Heavenly Religion, which was officially banned by Al-Azhar Islamic University in Cairo in 2008 for her critical research of Egyptian blasphemy laws. So, Cynthia, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, John. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. I'm a fan of yours, so this is great.
Thank you. Well, it's definitely mutual, and your book is fascinating. And let me just throw the cover up there so that we can take a look at it. What have I done? I did something wrong. There it is. Let's take a nice close look at it. It's The Secret Apparatus. Tell us what is the Secret Apparatus?
Well, that's a great question. The secret apparatus is the jihadist wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's as early as the founding of the group itself. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded in 1928 by a man called Hassan al-Banna, and it's a cult, and it has the tenets of jihadism. They borrowed the internal structure of Stalin, and that's where they borrowed the term the secret apparatus while they were building their internal structure. They also have some, and this secret apparatus, when they discuss this issue and their history with Westerners, they say that they have dismantled the apparatus. So I wrote a book to not only prove that the Muslim Brotherhood's terrorism apparatus is still operational, but it is the controlling body of the group itself, and it is the incubator of modern Islamic terrorism. When you hear about a group like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, Al-Jamal Islamiyah, which is Islamic group, excommunication and immigration, even Boko Haram, even the Taliban, none of these would have existed without the Muslim Brotherhood and without the work of the secret apparatus. They are almost the operating under ostensibly different banners, but that's the secret apparatus of the Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda members and founders were all card-carrying members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Ayman al-Zawahiri, Osama bin Laden, and Abdullah Azzam all lived and died members of the Brotherhood. And that's why I prove that from their own writings and their own words. There are 945 footnotes in the book, and it's predominantly from their own words. I hardly needed to add anything, any of my own analysis or opinion. They express themselves very nicely in Arabic. They tell the truth about the group and its activities in Arabic, and they change the narrative completely when they are targeting Westerners. The secret apparatus also has something called the international apparatus. It's a subdivision that operates in all countries where the Muslim Brotherhood body exists. And this entity calls itself the vanguards of organized invasion. Very dramatic. That's what they call themselves. And it targets universities, it targets schools, it targets non-governmental organizations, every intelligence agency. It has been targeting both in the West and in Arab countries. That's according to their own words. They also have a strong alliance with Iran, and the mullahs, the regime of the mullahs. And they are also extremely, they are actually, most of them, their victims are Muslims. People sometimes use the term Islamophobia to shut down the conversation about the Muslim Brotherhood. The truth is, 99% of their targets are Muslims, because they say they have even an extermination program for Muslims, which they call the blood tax. And it's absolutely horrific. And that's why when I discuss this issue in Arabic, it's like everybody agrees, with the exception of the few terrorists out there that send me hate mail. Other than that, everybody agrees.
Now, are you Muslim? Is that your background?
No, my background is Coptic Christian.
Okay.
But I have Muslim family members. I have atheist family members. So I grew up in a very, yes, Egypt wasn't extremely inclusive under Mubarak for sure, but my household was extremely inclusive. And we grew up accepting everybody, whether you're gay, straight, trans, whatever it is. We were very, very different. So that's how I was raised.
Yeah, and the book does not come across as anti-Muslim. It's very lucid and accessible. I mean, you're very methodical in your approach, very clear in your writing. Every assertion is footnoted. It's quite a handbook, I think, for understanding the Muslim Brotherhood and their tactics. So, I recommend it. I mean, I think that you're very critical of U.S. foreign policy. I think it's arguable. I think you've been basically critical of just about every American administration at one point or another has blundered when
Yes.
it comes to the Middle East. So it's not really an anti-Muslim screed, correct?
No, on the contrary, one of my closest friends, one of my best friends is Muslim, and he read the book and he told me, this is the first book that I've ever read on the topic that truly represents me. So actually, Muslims who are like you and I, just want to live their life, live and let live type of people, which is the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, they contact me. They believe in the same things. It's a very small cultish minority that wants to create this mayhem and that agenda, and it's extremely unpopular in the Middle East. They are the most unpopular group of human beings among Muslims, by the way.
Help me understand, or help our viewers understand, how they can discern the difference between someone who's a terroristic Muslim Brotherhood member and a peace-loving person who's Muslim. Because the Muslim Brotherhood, one of their tactics is deceit and to pretend to be peace-loving. So how can we tell the difference?
So I've answered that question in the book extensively, specifically for law enforcement. There are different criteria by which you can tell a normal Muslim and an Islamist who actually is working towards a militant agenda of supremacy, genocide, and very, very radical and very violent. The first way is always good for law enforcement is association. When you look at who the person is associated with, like if you're constantly taking pictures with the president of Turkey, who is a card-carrying leader in the Muslim Brotherhood, that should give an idea that you are not only a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but either a leader, in the secret apparatus and the international apparatus, or one of the leader's deputies. For example, that's a way. If someone is constantly appearing, not once by coincidence, but repetitively appearing in known Muslim Brotherhood protests, riots, conferences and events, someone who appears in pictures with several self-confessed leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. Also, another way for law enforcement to detect them is through marriage, because the Muslim Brotherhood is a cult, and they have very strict criteria of who someone should, of how someone should get married, when, and to whom. And it has to be from another Muslim Brotherhood family as well, with the same hierarchy inside the group. It's a very classist system inside their group. So marriage is also a way for them to hide their associations, because if you're calling your brother-in-law, it's not going to be flagged as you communicating with another terrorist. It's just going to be flagged as you talking to your brother-in-law. So that's according to their own words, by the way. That's something that they say, how they hide these associations in marriage.
I mean, they spell these out in their handbook, I guess, right?
Yes, and what I did is just basically translate everything they have said. Someone who also repetitively follows the guidelines of the Muslim Brotherhood's discourse, because they are very strict. You're not allowed to express your own opinion on any issue on earth unless the governing body of the group agrees to it. So there are a few talking points, and I have been offered a lot of bribes to modify my discourse a little bit. Serious bribes, like we're talking millions of dollars, we're talking a lot of powerful positions. And I have evidence of that, because they're not very smart. I literally have evidence that someone tried to bribe me with millions of dollars, and they could have delivered on it.
And bribed you to do what? To say what?
To say the following talking points: that the Muslim Brotherhood is just like American Christians. They're just religious. That's a talking point. That they are, each chapter in each country is independent. They have full autonomy in each country. That's absolutely not true. But that was a talking point. That violence is a thing of the past. There might be few bad apples, but it's not the organization itself. So these are the main talking points that I was offered millions of dollars to regurgitate. And when I hear them, not everybody who says these things, of course, is getting paid by terrorists, but these are, because they became popular talking points.
Because we want to believe that people who advocate peace, who's against peace, right? So that's certainly attractive. But what you've been primarily talking about is how law enforcement is able to discern the difference. I think it's probably a little bit more difficult for those of us who aren't as clued in as law enforcement is.
Yes, and it's definitely hard, because I would rather that we accidentally miss a Muslim Brotherhood than misunderstand the regular Muslim to be a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. So I'm very cautious about that. But the overwhelming majority of Muslims, whether they are in the West or in the Middle East, specifically in the Middle East, are horrified and frightened by this project. That's why the things I say in my book are very popular in Islamic and Muslim majority countries, because the people look at what's happening in Iran.
Well, I was going to ask about that. You must be very pleased with this uprising among young women there.
I absolutely love it, but it makes me sick to my stomach, because these people go out and they're in their mindset, they're thinking it's either freedom or death. And that's a very tough spot and tough position to be, because I know exactly how they feel. every time they go out, they do not know whether they will face horrific torture, whether they get murdered, or whether they're going to go back home to their family. So the courage absolutely is humbling, and it's painful to watch.
What do you
That
think? What do you think is going to happen? I think just today it was reported that the Iranian government is going to reevaluate this whole morality police.
the mullahs in Iran are experts in dissimulation.
What do
That
you mean?
their creed is dissimulation, and they call it taqiyya, which is to lie, to get the founder of the Iranian mullah regime, Ayatollah Khomeini, said, Taqiyya is my religion and the religion of my forefathers. Dissimulation is my religion and the religion of my forefathers. I don't believe anything they say. The Iranian people also do not believe these guys. They are experts on lying and experts on propaganda. Nobody will believe that they're actually doing that.
Yeah.
It could be a tactic to try to stifle the protests, and then they will come back 10 times worse. And in my opinion, I think that's what they are planning to do.
Now, you were in Egypt during the Arab Spring, correct?
Yes.
Is this very similar to that? What's going on in Iran right now?
No, it's not, because the so-called Arab Spring is something that I also extensively discuss in my book, was a coup d'etat by the Muslim Brotherhood's apparatus inside the Egyptian army, masquerading as popular protests. One of the people that used to threaten me in the Egyptian regime told me exactly what's going to happen. And that's why I started liquidating all our assets in Egypt before the so-called Arab Spring, because I knew what was going to come. Sometimes when these guys would threaten me, they would like to show how powerful and connected they are. So they spill a lot of the secrets. And I knew what was going to happen piece by piece before it happened in 2010. So the so-called Arab Spring took place in 2011, and I have the evidence that I started liquidating our family's assets in 2010 because I knew it was coming. So there were definitely tons of liberals and socialists and communists in Tahrir Square that do not adhere to Islamist ideologies, and I know them. Ironically, Egyptian society is not as polarized. Like, I believe in capitalism. One of my dear friends was a socialist and was extremely powerful in the socialist society in Egypt. And these people protested together because they knew that they could disagree over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a glass of wine, where we can discuss where we disagree, and we can come to better conclusions and learn from each other. But these guys want to decapitate both of us. So whether you believe in capitalism and free market, or whether you believe in socialism or mixed economy, or whatever it is, we can talk about it over a cup of tea. But these guys want to put our heads on sticks. So we're not. So that's where I'm at. I was in Tahrir Square because there was also there was a strong presence for liberals in Tahrir Square. They have been stifled for 50 years, and finally they felt that they can get out. So that I saw that with my own eyes.
So what's it like to be on a hit list?
Well, I have been on hit lists most of my adult life, from age 22 to 23. That's when I was started to get targeted by Islamists. So I almost don't remember life without living under a threat. And honestly, the more they threaten me, the harder I push. I don't feel fear. I feel rage.
Mhm.
I don't.
Have there
And
been
rage is,
have there been attempts on your life?
yes, there has been an attempt on my life on October 9th, 2011. I was supposed to be at a protest for religious freedom in Cairo, and I got a fever that day just out of the blue. So I told my friends, I can't go with you. You guys go and come over to my house afterwards if you want to. And that day, um, the Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhood murdered a lot of people. And one of my dear friends, whom I decided to write this book when he was murdered, Michael Mossad, may he rest in peace,
Mm.
was killed execution style in front of his fiancée. And then they beat her afterwards in that protest. And then I got a call from the man who used to threaten me in the government, and he said, we missed you today, but it's over, we're going to get you. And this time I believed him because they killed my friend in front of TV cameras. There are actual videos of this murder.
Mm.
So I believed him, and 3 weeks later I was in the US. I came to America not even knowing where I was going to spend the night upon my arrival. I literally packed my bags and got on a plane and
What
came to America.
what year was that?
2011.
And was it difficult to make that transition?
Yes. Yes, it is difficult because there is I have survival guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I have guilt over the fact that I survived and the fact that I can walk in the street, and a lot of women can't do that, and a lot of people, and I can speak my mind, and a lot of people can't do that. I know what they feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I struggle with the survive, and the way to make it feel better is to give them a voice as much as I can. And that's why I get messages from Baha'is, from atheists, from socialists, from capitalists, Muslims, Christians, Jews, you name it, Sikh, Hindu, every creed, every political affiliation. People contact me and send me these incredible messages, and then that's what keeps me going.
Well, I mean, are you safe over here?
Yes, you know my husband. So
Yes. Well, your husband is an ex DEA special agent and just a badass in terms of in terms of being able to fight terrorists. Not to mention a badass writer, and so you guys are a great match. So yeah, he's sort of your protector, I guess, right?
oh, he is. I the first time I ever felt safe in my life was after we got married, and I said, "Huh, so that's what it feels like to feel safe." I've
Wow.
never had that feeling all my life.
When did you get married?
In 2015,
And how did you meet Jeff Higgins?
so Jeffrey and we started dating. And while we were dating, I was looking for an apartment, and I ended up moving into his building, not knowing that he was living there. And I was mortified when he told me. And I said, oh my God, he's going to think I'm stalking him. What? Do I have to put on makeup now every time I leave the house? There was so much stress. But it was great. It was great for it made our dating easier.
So
And
was it an instant connection?
I decided to marry him the first time I saw him. He didn't know that.
Well, I
Immediately,
bet it was mutual.
I just made the decision instantly. And everyone, and I called my friends and I told them I just met the guy I'm going to marry. And everyone was, they said, we thought you had a phobia from marriage. I told them, no, I have a phobia from bad marriages
Yeah.
because I saw a lot of those in my life. But I immediately decided that I was going to marry him. He is so easy to talk to. He's very courageous.
Yes.
He's And he's a real gentleman.
Yes, I know. He's been a guest on the show, and the reason I'm talking to you now is because he talks you up every chance he gets, and so I definitely wanted to meet you and read your book. So this is.
And your show with him is my favorite.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
of all of his interviews, your interview with him was absolutely fantastic.
Thank
I
you.
truly enjoyed it. So yeah, we have this very strong connection. We have very similar values. We are both sheepdog in a way.
What do you mean?
We feel very protective of other people, even if they're strangers. We have this urge to protect people who are weaker. Um, so that's a very strong thing that we have in common. That's why he got in counterterrorism. That's why I got into counterterrorism as well, because there was a lot of injustice around me, and I wanted to give a voice to these people who can't voice their ideas. And I started doing that behind my family's back because
Wow. Tell me, is the U.S. at risk, imminent risk of another 9/11 or something even worse?
yes, unfortunately, yes, because we don't learn from our mistakes in America for some reason. There is an anti-history and anti-intellectual stance to examining um, foreign policy on both sides of the aisle. It's truly a prevalent problem. Um, and that's why we are repeating the exact same foreign policy mistakes that led to 9/11. And I wrote an article about it, and it's in my book, The 12 Deadly Mistakes That Are Taken to Return Back to the pre 9/11 situation. I have been told this by an official in State Department that they want the Muslim Brotherhood. Someone in State Department and officials said, "Oh, they are bastards, but they are our bastards." No, that's why I have a chapter in my book called "They're Not Your Bastards," and I'm showing every time there was an alliance, they're better at being bad. It's as simple as this. We win on the grounds of the rule of law. If we're going to start fighting a proxy war with militias and with terrorists, they are going to win this battle because they are better at it.
It would seem to me, if I read you correctly, we are most at risk when we are naive and when we assume that we are not at risk, and
Yeah.
that the tactic the Muslim Brotherhood will use, correct me if I'm wrong, will be in a sense infiltration.
Yes, and that's what they say in the writings. One of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, called Hassan al-Turabi, and he was a close friend of Osama bin Laden. He died in 2016. He said and bragged on one of his interviews with Al Jazeera that they fully control the narrative about the organization in Western intelligence agencies. That's a big, big threat, and I have seen this firsthand. Um, that they target American and Western intelligence agencies and militaries, and especially in the areas of linguistics and translation, because a lot can get lost in translation, especially that the Muslim Brotherhood conceals its discourse in words like democracy, peace, freedom, justice. They have their own definitions. Even the word crisis, for example, means the activation of jihad according to their own literature. So their narrative their language is heavily coded and heavily concealed, but they reveal it in Arabic to their base.
Um, what's been the reaction to your book so far? I know it hasn't been out that long, but are people starting to become wiser about the threat?
So I have had an incredible support and incredible coverage in the Middle East. in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, in Egypt, and Syria. I can't. In a lot of Muslim countries, they've contacted me and they discussed my book on their TV shows, and there has been on their mainstream media, even state media and state newspapers have been covering my book, because Muslims understand the threat and they're mortified by the Western response to the Muslim Brotherhood. As for the reaction from the Muslim Brotherhood, I'm deeply disappointed from the way they reacted to my book. Very disappointed.
Well, they didn't like it, I bet.
Yeah, but I thought they would be smart about it. Like I honestly thought that, you know what, we're not going to come near her, because if we kill her, we'll prove that everything she's saying is right. I thought that they were smart enough to do that, but they weren't.
What happened instead?
They activated Al-Qaeda cells inside the United States against the critics of the Muslim Brotherhood. And it's hard to not take it personally, especially that it happened 2 weeks after my book was out by a Muslim Brotherhood and a jihadist in New York City. He operates out of Manhattan. That's part of, and I name him in my book as potentially the biggest cyber jihad and cyber terrorism recruiter on planet Earth. He resides in Manhattan. This man streams videos on how to use household appliances to murder your opponents. It's horrific content. It's horrific stuff.
Well, my goodness, how do you emotionally, psychologically, philosophically handle the possibility of actually being killed for your beliefs? I mean, you must have thought this through. How do you deal with the fear that must be part of the dynamic here?
I don't feel fear anymore. I feel it becomes a mission, and I become to see myself as a soldier. When you're a soldier in a battlefield, you know that this is a possibility, but you have a mission. And that mission is to expose these monsters to the West, to try to protect these societies that I love, these cultures that I love, from destruction, because Egypt was actually one of the most incredible countries in the world. It had one of the strongest economies in the world. People used to flee from all over Europe to live peacefully and with prosperity and in Egypt before the Muslim Brotherhood coup d'etat of 1952. So the Egypt that my grandma grew up in is very similar to America in the 90s and the 80s. It was very advanced. Like my great grandma used to wear a bathing suit on public beaches in Egypt. That was normal.
Are you optimistic about the future about the ability to be able to find common ground? I mean, obviously, with someone who's a radical extremist, it's not really possible to have any kind of a conversation with them. But, do you hold some hope for being able to find common ground, especially in our society, even in the US, that's so hyper polarized right now?
This should not be a partisan issue. If someone wants to cut our heads off, that shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should agree that this is wrong. Okay, let's agree that beheading is wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm there.
Okay, so after that, we can disagree on whatever, but they have to be designated as a terror group. These guys are not going to get rehabilitated. They're not going to stop killing and then find an honest job as working at a gas station or something. You do not go from mass murder to becoming a law-abiding citizen. It doesn't happen this way. So they have to be designated as a terrorist organization.
Aren't they now?
No, they're not. And that's why I wrote my book as an indictment. I wrote my book as a legal indictment with all the evidence
It really reads that way. I mean, you're very meticulous the way you lay things out.
And it's intentional because I want them to get designated as a terrorist group. They are designated as a terrorist group in most Muslim countries because
So
they
are
are.
you is your book in any way being read at the State Department?
No, unfortunately, the State Department. I had a conversation when I first came to America. I had a conversation with an official in State Department who's still there. And I told him, we have to stop the Muslim Brotherhood. And he said, ha, 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 there is no we. You are on your own. We want the Muslim Brotherhood. That's a quote. That's a quote from State Department.
Did you get it on a recording?
No, because that's actually very common. That's the common theme in State Department, and it has been since 1979, since the arming of jihadists against the Soviets. That's a failed tactic.
Right.
9/11 should have told us, oh, let's not give military grade weapons to a bunch of serial killer coalition who's out to just, let's not do that. We should have woken up after 9/11. But what America did is just more of the same. More of the same.
What are your plans from here? Do you have a plan to write any follow-up books? Are you planning to do fiction? What are you working on now?
So right now, this book is the one I just published is very heavy, and it needs to be explained in various articles, and I need to take it apart a little bit to make it more accessible. So I'm focusing on that. But my next project is going to be a fiction novel inspired by true events. There is a publisher who wants me to write my biography, but it's very hard to go into the past. So my next project is going to be a fiction book inspired by true events. It's much easier to write it this way, to sort of divorce myself psychologically a little bit from this character.
How far along are you in that fiction project?
I actually finished the Arabic version of it.
Oh my.
Because I started it in 2008, and the reason I wrote it was for a very interesting reason. You're gonna like that. In 2008, one of the death threats I got from Mubarak State Security was they used to call me and say all the time and tell me we're gonna kill you from 10 to 50 times a day. It was just constant. And sometimes they would let some guy, a necrophiliac, call me to tell me the things he's gonna do to me after he kills me. And I used to find it, I used to laugh at it because at some point it was ludicrous. Mm-hmm. And then when someone tells you this 50 times a day, you stop feeling anything. So one of these phone calls in 2008, the guy started screaming from the top of his head. He's saying, oh, you've cost us a fortune because we have to change the people spying on you and your group every 2 weeks. I told him, what? Every 2 weeks? He said, yes, because they get persuaded by the garbage you people are. I told him, oh my God, I would have thought it would take 6 months, maybe 2 years to de-radicalize someone, not 2 weeks. But that's why I thought that gave me so much hope that my message is in people's instincts is, yes, beheadings are wrong. They like that kind of stuff. Maybe you should be nice to your neighbor. So that's what inspired my the project. The next project is how people change without you even noticing, and then it snowballs into something very, very big.
I'm intrigued by that. I'm dubious just because I think because of the last 4 years I've become more cynical about the possibility of ever being able to find common ground and change people's minds. But convince me, give me some hope here.
The fact that we do not agree on everything, for example, in economically or something, but we can still have a discussion. There is hunger for that. All my friends, I disagree with most of my friends on a lot of policy issues. Uh, but we have so much in common, and that's what we really need to focus on. I'm very optimistic, to be honest with you, because I don't watch mainstream media.
Mhm.
That's where we should start.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Turn off the TV and read books,
There
know
you go.
history,
Yeah.
and read your opposite, the views that you do not agree with. I've lived all my life reading views that I disagree with. And that really examines you and makes you confront your values and makes you confront your belief system on everything. And you cannot lose that battle when you expose yourself to the opposite view. You always win this battle,
Yeah.
because whether you're proven right or wrong, you win and become bigger as a human being. Whether you were proven right or proven wrong, you're better getting out than you got in, right? So that's how I view things. Look at books and stay away from mainstream media.
Let me give people a chance to contact you. I've got your website up there, CynthiaFarahat.com, CynthiaFarahat.com. And so there's a way to contact you that way, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Through my website, through my Twitter account, through my official Facebook page. I always respond to messages.
You're a very courageous person, and
Thank you.
this has been a treat for me. I've really enjoyed meeting and talking with you. I wish we could go on longer. I do have actually a sort of a follow-up question that's a non sequitur completely, but I would imagine that the attack on Salman Rushdie, Muslim Brotherhood.
So the attack on Salman Rushdie was based on a fatwa to murder him coming out of Iran. I believe it was in 1981. It was Ayatollah Khomeini wanted to murder him, but the timing is, and they're both working together, by the way, the Muslim Brotherhood in Iran. So the timing is very disturbing. It's not a coincidence that it happened after the way we evacuated Afghanistan. It's returning to become again a playground for terrorists and transnational criminals and narco jihadists. So I think the timing is very disturbing. I know that they are targeting me with the activation of Al-Qaeda. I know that I'm a target. And I have wrote about this, about the man who activated Al-Qaeda cells. And he has previously mentioned me in one of his videos. But I will never stop. And this book proves my point. And whether I'm alive or dead, the book continues to make my case for me and for all those who were victimized by the Muslim Brotherhood and the millions who have been killed, tortured, and displaced because of this organization and do not have a voice. That will be the voice. And if they kill me, my battle continues through the book.
The book is The Secret Apparatus, and we've been speaking with Cynthia Farahat. This has been wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to, I guess you're opening a new restaurant in the DC area with Jeff. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's an idea. We still haven't really, it hasn't really did not really come to fruition, but it's an idea that we have. I hope that to one day do that. I hope to one day make it happen.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to your novel. When I don't read Arabic, so you have to do it in English for me, and I think that'll be fun as well. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I'm so glad to be on your show. My
Thank you.
husband absolutely respects you and he talks a lot about you a lot. So I feel like I know you already so well. Um, and I'm a fan of yours, and my husband is a fan of yours as well. So I really appreciate that you had me on your show.
Thank you. I mean, it's mutual, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. Cynthia, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.